So first of all, I would like to say this isn't the right channel for this video, nor am I the right person for this video. Normally on this channel, you'd hear us talking about music festivals and the culture and music that surrounds them. But in this video, we're doing something a lot different. We're talking about the recent change in the smoking age here in the US. Now, if you've somehow been living under a rock, you might not be aware of some pretty basic factors that are involved in the issue. Probably the most important factor is, of course, that smoking anything that contains nicotine, whether that be a cigarette, cigar, or even a vape, is very addictive, and it's a pretty huge problem here in the United States. Along with that problem are also several medical side effects, which include but aren't limited to cancer and several lung problems, including popcorn lung, which is something that people have recently been talking about to do with vaping. Another thing that's important when discussing this issue is to acknowledge that there's quite a bit of research that supports the fact that the brain isn't fully developed until variable ages ranging from 21 to 25. And I feel like those are the factors that the government was considering when they changed the smoking age from 18 to 21. And all of those facts are very important, and I can't really ignore them. Changing the smoking age could theoretically save lives if people quit smoking. And smoking is a negative habit to get involved in for most people. Even considering those facts, there's some other facts that I feel like we should consider. In the state of Iowa, where I am from, at the age of 18, you can join the military, you can buy a home of your own, you can get married, you can buy a gun, you can do a whole slew of things that require a huge amount of decision-making skills and responsibility. And it's strange to me that as far as the smoking age is concerned, 18 is not old enough to make a decision. 18 isn't old enough to make a life and death decision about whether or not you want to consume cigarettes, possibly for the rest of your life, or on that specific day. 18 isn't considered an old enough age to make the decision. However, in the case of guns, in the case of marriage, in the case of service in the military, it's considered old enough. In the case of independence from one's parents, it's considered old enough. In the case of paying your own taxes and paying your payment to the government for all the things that they do for you, it's considered old enough. In the case of voting, it is considered old enough. That is surprising to me. And I'm sure you're going to point out right now what I just said about how you can vote at the age of 18 and how these 18-year-olds had the opportunity to vote for the people that put this law in effect. Although you are correct, it is strange that the timing for this law didn't meet with election standards. No, this law came out at a time when the election is way into the distant future. Although I'm sure it was signed at an earlier date, the fact that it's coming out at this time when there isn't going to be an election until November seems like a strange coincidence. Seems like people were trying to protect themselves from the backlash of the people that they affected. Now, I want to say, first of all, I do not smoke. I've had the occasional cigarette at a concert just to relax me, but I do not smoke on a daily basis. And I think that a lot of people who don't smoke on a daily basis lack the empathy to realize how this affects people. I think a lot of people who are of the age that this law doesn't affect them, say over 21, who do smoke, lack the empathy to understand how this affects other people. I think a lot of people in the government who have chosen to make this law to protect young people and to aid in making this country a healthier place lack the empathy to understand how this actually affects people. People who have been smoking for the last 3 years completely legally, for the last 2 years theoretically, completely legally, and are 20 years old are now not allowed to purchase cigarettes. We've agreed that it's addictive. We've agreed that it's a big problem, but yet we don't even grandfather these kids in. We don't even... I feel like I'm just rambling on, but that's another problem I have with it. It's the fact that they didn't grandfather in the people who were already legally smoking. I think that if you're not aware of a grandfather policy, basically what that would have done is it would have allowed everyone who was 18 at the time of the law coming into effect, that they would still be allowed to buy cigarettes. However, the people who weren't 18 yet, therefore having never legally smoked, would not be allowed to buy cigarettes. I think that that would be a much more fair standard. I think that something clearly needed to be done, but I feel like this was a very poorly organized approach. There are a few other reasons that I have a problem with this policy. Another reason is, think of all the business owners. There are a number of small business owners, mind you, who own tobacco outlets and shops that cater to younger people. And I know what you're going to say. You're going to say, why were they targeting children as their main market? Because they weren't children. If you are targeting the 18 to 20-year-old market, that was perfectly acceptable a couple years ago, because that was a perfectly legitimate marketing strategy. You were marketing your product to people who are allowed to legally use your product. There are businesses who are going to lose huge percentages of their profits just because of this law. There are Americans who own small businesses who are now going to have to completely change who they sell to. They're now going to have to completely change their entire business model to try to make a profit. You are hurting real people. And I think that it just surprises me that something like this was handled so poorly. I mean, I want to hear in the comments your opinions. I want to hear in the comments like things that the way you feel about it. But for myself, I just don't think it's right. Like I said, I am a non-smoker. This doesn't personally affect me, but I understand that it affects millions of Americans who smoke and are of that age group. And sure, I know what you're going to say. They're going to keep smoking, which is the point. Why are we forcing people who are not going to quit smoking to risk fines, possible jail time, fines that could lead to them losing their license and the ability to maintain stable employment through driving to and from work, fines that could, I don't know, possibly lead to jail time that could, again, impede them from having their job, fines that could go onto their record and make them look bad for many things in their future. It amazes me that it amazes me that someone can look a 19-year-old in the face and say, you are not your parents' responsibility. You can be left out in the cold to starve. You can be 100% responsible for your own health and well-being. But when it comes to smoking, you're still a kid. when it comes to military service, when it comes to owning a firearm, when it comes to feeding yourself, you're an adult. But when it comes to smoking cigarettes, that's where you're a child. I understand the concept of the greater good and the idea that it would be good if everyone quit smoking. But we cannot expect such a huge group of people who have consistently smoked to quit smoking. We cannot expect such a huge group of people who have consistently vaped to quit vaping. And we cannot punish those people who are addicted to a product that was legal to them for them to consume weeks ago. We cannot punish them for continuing to consume that. I just feel like this law is a real violation of rights and a real violation of the young people of this country. I hope that it does good benefits and leads to a healthier, better America. And I hope that it does lead to people quitting smoking, which I'm sure it will. But I also hope that it doesn't lead to huge mental stresses and huge, I'd even say, mental health issues. People are known to suffer from depression when quitting smoking. For those same young people, I hope that this change in the age of responsibility for 18 to 20 year olds I hope that it will lead to that same level of respect for the development of a young person's brain in other areas like gun rights and military service and being able to purchase a home and live on your own and so many other areas where we seem to think it's incredibly acceptable to leave a young person out in the cold or to give them the responsibility to handle a firearm or to give them the responsibility to feed and clothe themselves. But when it comes to cigarettes, that's where we notice that they're not capable of making their own decisions. I don't know. I just had to get that off my chest. I'm posting it. It's a rant. It's a passionate rant. These are the base logs. I hope you liked that video, even though it's not what you're going to see on this channel. We're going to be going to Base Nectar tomorrow. We're going to be vlogging, and it's going to be a much different video. I promise this isn't going to turn into a political channel. Jojo Heart Attack out.